Welcome to Taiwan Talks, covering the latest global news from a Taiwan perspective. I'm Albert Cho. Foxconn founder Terry Kuo has announced his candidacy for the 2024 presidential election, with the inclusion of the ruling DPP candidate William Lai, KMT candidates Hou You-yi, and the TPP candidates Ke Wen-je. Kuo becomes the fourth candidate in this race. What change does this bring to the race, and what position do each take on China? Joining us today are Alex Huang, Director of International Affairs and a U.S. representative of KMT, and Stephen Tan, International Policy Advisory Group, Managing Director. A very warm welcome to both on the show. The first question goes to Professor Huang. Could you kind of elaborate the China policy of each candidate kind of briefly?
Well, I don't think I can cover all four candidates. Based on my position, I'm sure I can talk about the KMT candidates' policy toward the mainland. We believe that maintaining a communication line with the other side of the Taiwan Strait is important. The communication line can serve as a function for threat reduction and crisis prevention. The purpose is to maintain and keep the peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait and recalibrate the cross-strait relations from a high-tension status quo to a more stable and peaceful status quo. The TPP candidate, Mayor Ke, is not terribly clear. You know, sometimes it fumbles, so we need more time to observe. For Terry Kuo, his focal point is a peace accord with Beijing. But again, is the electability. Whether he does not have a party, he has not sufficient grassroots support. You know, whether an ideal can be put into practice is questionable. For DPP, I would refrain from elaborating their position.
Okay, Director Tan, so given the fact that he already explained each of the candidates' China policy a bit, could you kind of add up, on the same time, kind of, say something more about the DPP's China's policy?
I think one thing that all four candidates have in common is to try to uphold and keep the peace and stability of Taiwan Strait. No doubt about that. But the question is how. And the question is that by so doing, whether we will sacrifice where we are and who we are and what we stand. So I think it's really hard given the short time to elaborate, and I'm probably not in a good position to comment specifically on each and every candidate. But I agree with my dear friend Alex that Mayor Ke's position is very vague, and it's sometimes hard to apprehend. I wouldn't comment too much about the independent candidate to be Terry Kuo, but I would say that I know, as a matter of fact, that Vice President Lai is very clear in that in order to maintain the status quo, we have to do whatever it takes to be unprovocative, to be well prepared, and to not change the constitutional and legal framework as we have right now, while keeping the status quo of Taiwan, which is an independent sovereign state with its name as Republic of China. And that is crystal clear. And we want to do whatever we can to maintain the peace. Communications, open communications without political premises with China is critical. But it takes two to dance. I think it's a critical task for Vice President or any other candidates to try to strike a good balance by maintaining where we are, who we are and what we stand, both in terms of the constitutional legal framework and also, just daily way of life, while, find ways to continue to keep the communications channel with China, and then try to get ready, get prepared by using whatever that we have, the multiple deterrence by denial, working with the like-minded countries, and then so as to get prepared to preserve what we stand for while keep a dialogue or find ways to continue to keep dialogue with mainland China.
Okay, Professor Huang, would you say that if William Lai is elected, his China policy would immediately cause military drill in the Taiwan Strait?
I think the election outcome is about the next 4 years. It's not for an immediate future. So our presidential term is 4 years. So even though without an immediate Chinese reaction or coercive measures, I would look into the next 4 years. And so I think the election is about the next 4 years. It's not only for whether Beijing will react immediately right after the ballot. I don't think so. So I think my picture is pretty clear that the coming election is a choice of the next 4 years, which way or which party and candidate can bring about a more stable and peaceful environment for Taiwan.
Right. Director Tan, so given that you say the stabilization of the Taiwan Strait is still the goal for William Lai to pursue, but it's unavoidable to still get prepared if there's any kind of military reaction if William Lai himself is elected. What's your comment on this, or any kind of thoughts on this?
Well, I think China's aggression is constant. I think whether China will continue its current drills and exercises over Taiwan Strait and also many other places, I think a lot of which is determined by various different factors. What we can do, again, is try to make sure that we upkeep the status quo without making any changes unprovocatively, and while get ready for any potential change in direction, including non-peaceful coercion or other means of actions. Now, I wouldn't say that it's going to be worse if one of those candidates is going to be elected, one way or the other. But I think the truth being told is that no matter what happened, either any candidate who's going to be elected will need to face the same or similar issues or challenges. Now, no doubt about that. I cast doubt that a candidate advocating for peace and advocating for communications once and if he or she is elected, it's going to be a different ballgame. I doubt that, because the overall landscape is there, as I just pointed out, that it pretty much determined upon various different external factors and also the internal factors within China.
Okay, Professor Huang, let's come back to the China policy itself. For our international audience, can you explain the significance of the so-called 92 consensus?
Beijing considered the term 92 consensus as the basis for political communication and dialogue. For KMT, my party, and many of my friends, we believe that the 92 consensus is pretty much similar to the United States One China policy, which means that Beijing has its own One China principle, and the United States got its own One China policy, which consists of Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 communiques with Beijing, and President Reagan's 6 assurances to Taiwan. So we believe that our version, our view on 92 consensus, number one, it's a basis for dialogue. On the other hand, is different from Beijing's One China principle. It's a different interpretation, just like Washington versus Beijing?
Well, just for the basic understanding of 92 consensus, what that is for our international audience, just one China, but two different definitions on the sides of KMT
right.
and also on the other side for CCP, right? For the KMT parts, it pretty much means the Republic of China, but for
under
the
our
CCP,
constitution,
right?
yes.
Okay, for the CCP part, it's the People's Republic of China. So, Director Tan, do you believe that the 92 consensus continues to be a useful tool? Not only to stabilize the Taiwan Strait situation, but also to convince the Chinese leader Xi Jinping to continue to talk to Taiwan and not to use military to go against Taiwan.
Well, it's very hard because number one, 92 consensus, quote unquote, has no market in Taiwan. I mean, no candidates openly mention 92 consensus except for perhaps Mayor Ho mentioning that 92 consensus inconsistent with the Constitution. Honestly, I don't really know what that means, but 92 consensus has various different interpretations. It was there, it was the foundation, but now it's no longer been in existence because of the pragmatic reasons that in Taiwan there is no political appetite for that. Now, if 92 consensus refer to, under Beijing's interpretation, that it's actually an acronym for One China, which is, China under CCP and Taiwan being part of it, and then of course, no sensible Taiwanese will entertain that. But the problem is that how will you be able to find a way that to use that phrase with no political market in Taiwan to your advantage and use that as a base to be in the future communications or discussion with China? I think it's more than challenging. I think it's literally impossible.
Mm-hmm. Professor Huang, actually President Xi Jinping once said that 92 consensus to him is equivalent with one country, two system. The country, of course, is CCP's government. The two systems, the one system in Taiwan meaning democracy. However, the other system is in China, pretty much like the situation in Hong Kong. Do KMT buy into this, and how would you guys respond to this argument?
For decades, when we engage or dialogue with the other side of the Taiwan Strait, the one major principle is equal footing. Mm-hmm. If we deal with the other side based on equal footing, then Beijing can have its narrative. And we do not use Beijing's narrative and definition as granted, as the basis of our policy. So if you want to deal with Beijing, you must have your own position very strong, which is different from Beijing's. Then can you sit down and do dialogue? The real issue is that do we take Beijing's definition as the basis of our policy logic? That's the key. As a sovereign country, I think we should insist our constitution. We should insist our interpretation of the terminology or understanding that both sides consider that can serve as a basis for dialogue.
So that seems to me as there's no common grounds between the KMT and also CCP. The only common grounds might be its ambiguities.
Right.
Right. And
right.
How are you gonna
the ambiguity when it functioned and served the peace and stability and the benefit of cross-strait peace. And I think we should not overlook that because we already have high fevers across the Taiwan Strait. Mm-hmm. The number one issue when you have a high fever is to get the fever down. Mm-hmm. Okay, take medicine. I think Taiwan bears more responsibility than anybody else to cool down the cross-strait tension. It's for our own benefit and interest.
Mm-hmm. Allow me to just add one word very quickly. I think it used to work because China has a higher degree of tolerance on the ambiguity. Now, if China has the same degree of tolerance to continue to be ambiguous, i.e., it's not just about a 92 consensus of whether this is a effective tool or means to communicate with China. It's more about whether China can openly admit that Republic of China-Taiwan remained to exist after 1949. In China, when we go to China, whether or not this is something that we can openly talk about. I think it goes way beyond the terminology, is actually whether China remains flexible and ambiguous, or China is a different China right now. I think this is something that we don't see China is that flexible, but we hope they are.
Okay, I mean, those were very insightful for us to understand what 92 consensus is. Also, another question is that, we sometimes assume that William Lai is the least favored candidate by the Chinese Communist Party. How does CCP, though, view the other three candidates? Still, we have to kind of go through each of them. Maybe Professor, why don't you go first? Yeah.
The candidate that Beijing disliked might not get lost in the election. I think Beijing should learn the lesson that Taiwan electorate will choose their own leader. Beijing's sometimes coercive measures or try to infringe upon Taiwan's election had always been backfired. I hope that they would learn the lesson. However, we also observe seriously that Beijing is committed to take the initiative and momentum in managing or dominating the cross-strait relations. And that's why we need to be very vigilant on one hand, but on the other hand, very clear that we insist our own sovereignty and our rights to co-define what the relationship should be. Equally with Beijing.
Okay, Director Tan, in your opinion, which candidate might the CCP favor, and in terms, how might the CCP express its endorsement or support for that candidate, given Professor Huang mentioned that whoever is supported by CCP is going to lose in the future? But
well, I cannot comment on that question because I don't know. I think Beijing will have to find ways to let the rest of the world knows the answer to that question, because I agree with Alex that it is very delicate, and no one wants to be perceived to be Beijing's favorite. But then, of course, there are rumors and speculations and observations around, and people with different perspective will have a different view. But I don't have a particular thought or comment on that. I think anyone could observe, or Beijing may have a more revealing later on in the campaign season, as we can see.
Okay, Professor Huang, considering that William Lai is leading in a polls, how might his China policy differ from that of the current President Tsai? What specific aspects of President Tsai's legacy do you think Lai might continue?
Well, it would be up to Vice President Lai and his campaign team to respond to that question. Because as we observe what Vice President Lai has said in the past 3-4 years, and we found that he is moving closer and closer to President Tsai Ing-wen's position, at least verbally. And we don't know whether he will uphold and continue President Tsai's policy toward the mainland. But one thing that we know for sure is that William Lai is no Tsai Ing-wen.
Okay,
and so that's for sure.
William Lai, no Tsai Ing-wen. You could agree?
Well, this is a very commonly asked question as to what is Vice President Lai's platform in terms of foreign policy, policy with mainland China, and all this national security and defense issues. The answer is no difference. I mean, Vice President Lai, very, very clearly, advocated time and again that, as you can see in various different platforms, speeches, policies, and intentions, if you wish, that he's gonna or he has followed President Tsai's all the platforms and policies that going forward. If you look at this from the policy analysis perspective, Taiwan really has no other better choices to derail what President Tsai has been doing for the past seven and a half years. And I'm very confident that Vice President Lai, and once if he is elected, will follow suit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Professor, some have speculated that China may launch an attack on Taiwan in 2027. Regardless of who becomes the next president, what actions should and shouldn't the new leader take to safeguard Taiwan?
Well, whether 2027 or 2025, is the timetable for Xi Jinping to launch a military assault against Taiwan, is a subject itself for debate. Personally, as a professor of strategic studies and a person who do war games all the time, I do not believe that it's a rational choice for them. Of course, I have to emphasize that we have no illusion about Xi Jinping, have no illusion about a decision that may come out from a dictator. So we need to get ourselves prepared. I believe that if we got elected, or Taiwan as a whole, that, as I said, that we take more responsibility to maintain peace and stability than anybody else in the region. So we need to adopt a policy. I would frame it as a deterrence without provocation and assurance without appeasement. A balanced policy to maintain that the D-Day will be delayed as long as we can.
Okay, so short answer to this, any kind of DPP preparation for this potential PLA attack in 2027?
Well, we have to prepare. We have to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. We have to get ready, not just militarily, not just in defense, but also psychologically and in the whole society. So as to the point that we want to make sure that Xi Jinping wakes up each and every day and they say, no, not today. It's not the right time to launch an attack or coercion. And this is something that we're going to do every day.
Okay. A follow-up still to Director Tan. Should a new president still view China as a key trade partner and make policy adjustment accordingly? What challenge might the incoming president face if there is a push to renew a cross-strait trade agreements?
Well, China is still one of Taiwan's major trading partners, and I don't think there is any intention from Taiwan's perspective to reduce or to cut off. So we're going to continue to seek collaborations in terms of the trade and trading services, trading goods, and also other business and investments. And with and from China, but it will be up to China. Sometimes it's very political, so we'll see. But I think we have every good intention to continue the trading and other business relationship. It's de-risking, yes. Decoupling, absolutely not.
Okay, so if William Lai were elected, right, the CCP will still urge Taiwan to accept the 92 consensus, which is not likely among the DPP supporters or politicians. And what's your suggestion if that's a shetio?
The question for me is pretty clear that I want to ask myself and also the general public in Taiwan whether we want another 4 years of no dialogue. No matter what. Is that for Taiwan's best interest for cutting off official communication for another 4 years? I think the answer should be rest with our voters.
Regardless of who assumes the presidency, do you both believe China will persist in attempting to isolate Taiwan diplomatically?
I think that it's very clear that China's ultimate goal is to make the Republic of China disappear. From Earth or from international politics, even though we maintain still 13 official recognition. And I think we should continue to defend, without any doubt, of our diplomatic relationship with our allies.
Sure. Director Tan, do you agree with this assessment?
I agree, no doubt about that. I mean, this is a common interest. I think this goes across the party line, yes.
What kind of preparation should we have? I mean, if the diplomatic allies of Taiwan is reduced to zero, what then?
Well, we're trying to avoid that. We're trying to make that not happening. But then, in order to do that, we have to again work with like-minded countries, particularly the United States, to try to make sure that we still keep the diplomatic ties with many other countries as we are right now.
Sort of follow up for Director Tan. What steps should Taiwan's civil society, now we're talking about people, consider to minimize, the risks of PLA's attack on Taiwan? You mentioned that the mentality on the side of the Taiwan society is very important. What else we can do to boost this?
Well, we have to build up a sense of community to have a greater consensus that we'll do whatever we can to avoid the aggression. But if that happens, we have to put together across the party line. This is very very bipartisan. But then we have to build up ourselves psychologically and also in the self-defense. We can't rely on other countries to come to the rescue. First and foremost, we have to be strong and tough enough ourselves.
Okay. In this episode, we explored the China policies of the 4 candidates and discussed how the China card might influence the outcome of Taiwan's presidential election. Enjoying the content? Leave us a message on our YouTube channel and do not to forget to hit the subscribe button. Until next time, take care.